Upsets, statements, structural shifts. This week in women's cricket delivered on all three, and in very different ways. India A was stunned by the UAE, raising questions at the pathway level. A transitional Australian side faltered against the visiting Indians in a rain-affected opener. South Africa underlined their growing consistency by sealing the Women's T20I series against Pakistan. BCB confirmed the inaugural edition of the Women's Bangladesh Premier League. Sri Lanka and West Indies named squads for the limited overs term in the Caribbean. Lastly, Melie Kerr was announced as the all-format captain of the White Ferns. Taken together, these aren't isolated developments. They point to deeper trends across the international game. Let's dive right in. India A's loss to the UAE in the Women's Asia Cup Rising Stars was something that no one really saw coming. Also, the result has arguably shown that India's bench strength isn't there where it should be for a world beater. Led by India regular Radha Yadav and featuring popular WPL faces in Minnu Mani and Prema Rawat, Samaira Dharnidharka's bowling first halted India's batters in their place. Before, she joined forces with Isha Oza in the middle to help her side chase down the target of 131 quite easily. While it's a developmental side, Humaira Kazi's selection into the squad ahead of the likes of Nikki Prasad and Raghavi Bisht was a tad bit perplexing. Add to that, the fact that she was drafted into the 11 ahead of the likes of Nandini Kashyap or even someone like Diya Yadav, I'm not sure what to make of that. I will probably just term it an interesting choice right now. With India slated to play Nepal next and the games happening tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see if they enforce that change or they persist with Humaira Kazi for yet another game. On the other hand, UAE continue to make all the right noises, posting an emphatic win versus Nepal yesterday. The captain Isha Oza posted her 6th Women's T20 100 and helped UAE get to 189 after crawling to 42 for 2 at the halfway mark. For Nepal though, I really liked watching the new ball duo of Kavita Kumar and Manisha Upadhyay. The former is a right-arm pacer, while the latter is a slow left-armer who has the ability to drift the ball into a right-hander very sharply. Across both their games, the two have conceded at less than 6 runs per over and have been a big reason behind Nepal's respectable showing. The tournament also saw Bangladesh snatch victory from the jaws of defeat versus Sri Lanka, winning by a slender 4-run margin. Opting to bat first, they took on the Pacers really well to finish at 48 for 2 at the end of the power play. However, the innings never really got going post that as they got bundled out for 115 with a delivery left in their quota of 20 overs. Despite both Chetana Vimukti and Mithali Bandara going for runs, enjoyed watching both the Pacers roll their arms over for Sri Lanka. Bandara in particular was exciting to watch thanks to his slingy action and the whippage of her wrists at the point of release, reminding one of the plethora of slingers that the island nation has produced. Chetana meanwhile is a lot more conventional in her bowling action, but that did not necessarily make her any slower. Her ability to rush batters will help the Lankans boost their pace attack that currently has not too many names beyond Malki Madra and Kavya Kavindi. Speaking of slingers, another bowler I'd want to watch more of will be Pakistan's Sneha Nadeem. She was brought in for yesterday's game versus India A and got to bowl just the one over that went for a few, but a left-arm pacer who's noticeably round-arm, that's a double whammy in this part of the world. So it'll be very interesting to see if Pakistan give her more chances because we've not really seen a lot of left-arm pacers feature for them. We remember Tasmia Rubab who featured in the Pakistani squad and if I'm not wrong played that one-odd game in the T20 World Cup that happened in 2024. So someone like Neha Nadeem, if groomed well, could potentially be a bit of that X-factor pacer that they are looking for beyond Fatima Sana. So excited for that. Moving down to the land down under now. Sophie Molineux's captaincy debut was marred by rain as they went down to India by 21 runs via the DLS method. Playing on a typically slowish SCG surface, none of the Australian batters ever really applied themselves, as they just kept going for their shots and gave away their wickets. Arundhati's love for Australia only grew as she ended the game with yet another faux-pas, while Kranti continued her poor run of form from the WPL, conceding 39 runs in her 3 overs. Sure, the result went in India's favour and Team India fans would probably be happy, but I would probably say that the Indian team just about managed to contain Australia in Sydney, and it had a lot to do with the Australian batters earning and less to do with the Indian bowlers earning their wickets. Of course, no one's going to complain about that, but I'm not sure if the home team will be just as generous in Canberra. And the Indian 11 was easily a batter shot with Aru slated to come in at number 7. I think given the structure and the way they've placed themselves, fair to say that Aman right now is not bowling fit, and which is why Arundhati came in place of her into the 11. If Amanjot is fit enough to bowl, I would swap Kranti for Aman. And of course, ensure that you get an extra batter. You've got two new ball bowlers in Arundhati who can bring it in, and of course, Renuka Singh Thakur. Aman can chip in the middle overs and of course at the death too. But let's assume Aman isn't fit, and if that's the case, I would drop Shriyanka Patil for either an Amanjot Kaur or a Bharti Fulmali just to add another batting option down the order. Because depending on six batters, including Richa and Deepthi, I think is a tad too risky. And while I do trust Arundhati's batting, I think she's a more than capable number 8, and number 7 is probably a spot too high for her. For Australia, though, of course, the biggest surprise had to be vice captain Talia Meghrazumishan from the 11. From leading Australia in a World Cup semi-final when Elisa Healy was injured just over 15 months ago to now being dropped, it's been a rapid descent for her. Nicola Kiri's WPL form, of course, would have definitely helped her strengthen her case, but she did herself no favours with a fairly mediocre all-round performance yesterday. Known for role clarity and consistency in team selection, it'll be interesting to see if Australia go back on their choice for the second Women's T20I. Sticking to the Southern Hemisphere, South Africa won the first two Women's T20Is to clinch the series versus Pakistan ahead of the dead rubber later tonight. That they managed to win the first game in the absence of two of their biggest match winners in Marizanne Cup and Nadine de Klerk bodes really well for them. Fans might remember the first encounter for Fatima Sana's brilliant 41 ball 90 to take her side from 64 for 6 after 10 to 180 at the end of the innings. For me, it was all about Kela Renuka. The former South African under-19 skipper finally made her much awaited debut and had an immediate impact with a miserly spell of 2 for 13 in her 4 overs, showing South Africa exactly what they had been missing in the last couple of years of their incredible growth. A dependable spinner, her inclusion will be a massive shot in the arm for that spin attack, and potentially along with someone like Adani van Niekerk, assuming she bowls, or Seshni Naidu, they could bring in some variety too. Elsewhere, Sri Lanka and West Indies both announced squads for their series of 3 Women's T20Is and 3 Women's ODIs, all of which will be played in Grenada itself. The biggest talking point has to be Hayley Matthews and Deandra Doughton's return to the maroon jersey. Alongside newbies Jazira Clarkson and Jamelia Glasgow, and of course add the experienced Chanel Henry to that, I'm genuinely excited to see how the 4 pace all-rounders operate for this side. Add the wrist spin of Afi Fletcher, the off-spin of someone like a Karishma Ramirak, and the slow left arm of Zaida James to that, and this is genuinely a bowling attack that could really surprise many during the T20 World Cup. Further, the Bangladesh Cricket Board finally announced the launch of the Women's Bangladesh Premier League, with the first season expected to begin in a couple of months' time. It's going to be a 3-team tourney like the Women's Caribbean Premier League, and here's what we know right now. Teams will be recruited via our draft system. Overseas players will be signed by each side, although we don't know what the playing 11 or the squad composition is going to look like. So how many overseas players in the 11, how many overseas players in a squad, not sure yet. Are the teams going to be privately owned like their male counterparts, or will BCB handling it all by themselves? We're not sure of that too. And given the political tension between Bangladesh and India right now, will Indian players be awarded NOCs to go ahead and participate in the tournament? No clue on that either. Nonetheless, it's still a much needed move for Bangladesh, and with the young guns in Marufa, Rabia and someone like even Sobna Mostly taking over, the timing couldn't have been better to get their players more game time throughout the year. It could also have a positive network effect, with some of the Bangla players potentially receiving gigs in international leagues overseas. Last but not the least, Melie Kerr has been announced as Sophie Devine's successor to New Zealand's captaincy. It always felt a matter of when, not if. With the cricketing cycle seeing additions in the T20 Champions Trophy and the Olympics over the next 2 years, the timing aligns well with the generational shift. New Zealand next hosts Zimbabwe in a 3-match Women's T20I series starting on the 25th of Feb, offering her an immediate platform to define her leadership imprint. Devine will continue being a part of the T20 setup though, and the upcoming Women's T20 World Cup in June could be her last appearance in a New Zealand jersey in all likelihood. That's your snapshot of the week in women's cricket. Not just what happened, but what it signals. The results will change, it's the trends that matter. If you're looking for structured, consistent analysis of the sport, please subscribe. New breakdowns every week.